Hope you're doing well. Darn it, I wanted to tell everybody about how frustrating OJ is getting in my last stream, and I stopped it too soon. Oh, well, I'll tell him tomorrow. Donald just got 100 more minutes. I'm up to almost 8 hours now. Donald, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay. Let me share my screen. Let's watch OJ. We haven't watched OJ in so long, like a day.
Morning. Second, I have a funeral that I must attend tomorrow, so I will have a limited amount of time to respond to the request and to determine what the city's legal position would be.
How about March 3rd?
March 3rd would be better, Your Honor.
All right, March 3rd.
Thank you. What time?
9 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. All right, Ms. Robertson. Let's, okay, we're going to take a recess to set up the videotape equipment, and we'll resume as soon as the equipment is available. Thank you, Counsel.
I wanted to see the videotape equipment being rolled in on a big cart.
In the Simpson matter, record should reflect that we are about to conduct a conditional examination pursuant to...
Let's start here. Looks like a good spot. Look, Kardashian made it to the front row. Look. He's not getting the back seat. Get back where you belong.
Is again present with his counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Bailey, people represented by Ms. Clark, Mr. Darden, and Ms. Lewis.
I have a matter, Your Honor, I'd like to bring to the court's attention, and it was the subject of some discussions that we had in chambers. Your Honor, as the court is aware, Your Honor, this morning, a document which is a 2-page statement written by an investigator and addressed to Mr. Shapiro concerning Rosa Lopez was turned over to the prosecution after having an in-camera review with the court. That was a document that is dated July 29th, 1994. Now, Your Honor, I was under the impression that that document had been turned over to the prosecution consistent with other documents that we had turned over on September the 1st, 1994. Indeed, Your Honor, when we discussed with Ms. Lopez last week the substance of her testimony, we were discussing it within the context of the July 29 document. That document, Your Honor, included reference to an undocumented housekeeper who is named Sylvia, who is acquainted with Ms. Lopez and who was present on some times that are not critical nor germane to the substance of Ms. Lopez's testimony. Ms. Lopez had expressed severe concern that the Sylvia, and she is not aware of Sylvia's last name, but that Sylvia, since she was undocumented, did not want to have any involvement at all in this particular case and did not want her name mentioned at all in any reports dealing with Ms. Lopez's statement. It was with that context that Mr. Pavlik generated a second document, which was an interview of Ms. Lopez which occurred, and that document was dated August the 18th, 1994. It is the August the 18th, 1994 document that was turned over to the prosecution. I have, Your Honor, in the interim since this morning, checked with my office to see whether my office had any record or knowledge of the August 18th statement, because it was not among the documents that I used to help discuss Ms. Lopez's testimony with her this past week. And I was told that we did not have the August 18 document in our particular file. I learned about the possibility that such a document existed when I spoke to Mr. Pavlik on Sunday, complaining that Mr. Pavlik had included in his report to the prosecution a name that Ms. Lopez had wanted to not be included. It was then that I learned, and I verified it when I checked my own documents here in court, that in fact there had been a second report, the August 18 report, that was in fact a 2-page document of Ms. Lopez, just as the July 29 statement was a 2-page document of Ms. Lopez. That is where my confusion was born, such that when I saw that there was a 2-page statement of Ms. Lopez, I thought we were talking about the earlier statement, and I was not aware of the existence of the August statement. I anticipate that Ms. Clark will stand before you and express some shock, some outrage, and some sense of prejudice. I would like to say these words in response, however. The August 18th statement that was turned over to the prosecution is more detailed in terms of the germane facts of Ms. Lopez's testimony. There is more inclusion, for example, in the August 18 statement about the circumstances of the June 13 interview between Mr. Furman in the morning and Ms. Lopez. More information was contained in the August 18 statement than was even in the July 29 statement. The August 18 statement was created simply to assuage Ms. Lopez's concerns that her undocumented friend, who did not want any involvement in this case, might come forward, her name might be released, and she might then be interviewed or some way involved in this case. However, Ms. Lopez told me, and told Mr. Cochran when we were discussing that statement, that she had had subsequent conversations with this Sylvia, and that Sylvia had in fact been interviewed by Los Angeles Police Department officers months ago, that Sylvia in that interview had denied any acquaintanceship with Ms. Lopez, knew her only briefly, and did not have any information to lend to anything concerning this case, which was consistent with the statement that Sylvia told Ms. Lopez that Sylvia did not want to have any involvement in this case and would deny any subsequent involvement in the case were she to be asked about it. Therefore, Your Honor, if there is some claim that there is some surprise, that there is some prejudice, I think that you should inquire whether or not this Sylvia person has ever been known to the prosecution, whether or not this Sylvia person had ever been interviewed by the prosecution, and she was in fact interviewed, as I said, months ago. Her relevant involvement in this particular case is not germane to the substance of Ms. Lopez's statement that sometime after 10 o'clock she went outside walking her dog and saw Mr. Simpson's Bronco in a location identical to where she had seen that Bronco earlier in the evening. The only context was...
Terry, that sucks. 2 car bills, it's like buying 2 tires. Thank you, Bossy. Car bills suck.
Which the Sylvia information has any sort of relevance is to explain why at approximately 8 o'clock Ms. Lopez was outside waiting for Sylvia to come over and thereby saw Mr. Simpson's Bronco parked in the same position as it was parked later after 10 o'clock, and why sometime after 9 or 9:15 Ms. Lopez was outside to see Mr. Simpson leave and to notice that he had left in his Rolls Royce with another man who we now know was Cato Kalin when they went to go get a hamburger. The statement in August includes mention of Ms. Lopez being outside at 10 o'clock and seeing the Bronco, includes mention of Ms. Lopez seeing Mr. Simpson leave in his Bentley after 9 o'clock with an unknown person, and then learning that there was some hard-soled shoes walking down Mr. Simpson's property about 20 to 30 minutes after he had left to McDonald's.
Excuse me, if Ms. Lopez is here, can we have her step outside?
Terry, thank you for the 50. Wait, I don't want to mess up and say 50 if it's 60, say 60 if it's 50. Terry, thank you so much for purchasing 50 minutes through Donald. Donald, you're so nice. Thank you, thank you.
Mrs. Hamburg, why don't you and your client step outside while we're discussing your client's potential testimony, please? Thank you. Please wait in the hallway. Thank you, counsel.
But, Your Honor, any involvement or any mention of Sylvia or any relevance to anything that she may offer is really collateral and tangential to the substance of Ms. Lopez's testimony. The statement that we gave in August is more complete as to what Ms. Lopez will testify to than the statement that was in July. The prejudice, if any, is minimized because the people have already interviewed this Sylvia. The people have a statement, I would assume, although I have never seen any reports of the interview of Sylvia, but Sylvia told Ms. Lopez that, in fact, she was interviewed by detectives or police officers shortly after the incident occurred months ago. And therefore, Your Honor, I think that, yes, there was a problem because a two-page report that predates the report that was turned over was not actually turned over. However, the report that was turned over is more complete in terms of the testimony that Ms. Lopez will give in this trial. And the reason why the second report was created was simply to protect the identity of an undocumented worker who did not want to have her name mentioned or to be involved in the case of this sort of profile.
Okay, now you went through that whole thing twice. We heard it. We heard it the first time.
I'm also reminded, Your Honor, that we, upon learning, and this morning when we were looking at the documents that we turned over to the prosecution, learned for the first time that, in fact, to our surprise, the July 29 statement was not the one that had been turned over, but it was this August 18 statement, and that was then the reason for the added delay while we brought that up to the court and then voluntarily turned that document over to the prosecution.
Ms. Clark? Certainly.
It was JK. Hi, Angela.
I feel like I'm experiencing deja vu. All over again. That's right. Mr. Douglas stands before the court once again to fall on his sword. I guess he's elected to do that. That's his job in this trial. I'm not impressed. I think that these representations by counsel are unavailing to alleviate the problem that they have created by willfully failing to disclose material statements. This July 29th statement is not only, counsel wants to represent to us that the August 18th statement was more detailed and had more relevant information than the July 29th statement. When I went through and compared the two statements, what I found was that actually, in most relevant respects, the July 29th statement was far more detailed. And there was one obvious omission in that July 29th statement, and that is that at 10:15 to 10:20, on July 29th, Rosa Lopez said she went out to walk the dog and made no mention of seeing the Bronco at all. That statement is totally absent from the July 29th statement. Only on the August 18th statement does it state that she went out to walk the dog at 10:15 to 10:20 and saw the Bronco. Obviously, we have some material discrepancies of a very important nature. Discrepancies that we should have been informed of quite a long time ago. Discrepancies that would have allowed us to address Ms. Lopez in a far different manner. With respect to the greater detail in the August 18th statement, let me point out that it was only the July 29th statement when she made mention of what kind of shoes she was adamant the prowler was wearing. August 18th says nothing about that. The information concerning Detective Mark Furman in the July 29th statement is no different. In fact, it states that it was conclusively Detective Mark Furman she spoke to, whereas in the August 18th statement it says that he was subsequently identified as Mark Furman. And lest there be any mistake made here, Your Honor, the August 18th statement makes no mention of a July 29th interview, and the August 18th statement states specifically that it is not an edited version of a prior statement, but it was a statement generated by Rosa Lopez on August 18th. So we have not only willful failure to disclose the July 29th statement by their late presentation today, but we also have a deliberate material misrepresentation implicit in the August 18th statement, in which it purports to have interviewed her once and only once, and that was on August 18th, deliberately misrepresenting and misleading the people to believe that there was only one interview. Now, what makes that an even more gross lie is that both statements were taken by the same investigator, Bill Pavlik, given to the same attorney, Robert Shapiro. Obviously, counsel knew, obviously Pavlik knew that there was a prior statement, and there's no mention of that. This is a material misrepresentation in and of itself. And as officers of the court, they should be ashamed. They should be embarrassed. In fact, their bar tickets should be hanging in jeopardy at this point for this kind of misconduct. And this is misconduct. There's no question about it. The question is what the court wants to do about it. It's another issue. But I am appalled. I am appalled as an officer of this court that these kind of misrepresentations would be propounded in the manner that they are, with these sanctimonious denials and claims of being fair-minded and open-handed and forgetting that there was supposedly a witness who would corroborate at least some aspect of Rosa Lopez's statement. Obviously, Rosa Lopez put this person into her July 29th statement for the express purpose of showing how credible she was. And when the defense found out that Sylvia was not only not going to corroborate Ms. Lopez, but was going to say she's a liar and no such thing ever happened, and I wasn't at her house, and I did not make an observation of the Bronco, she conveniently disappeared from the statement. That's the truth. All we knew, and counsel wants now to point the finger at us to try and put us on the defensive after their misconduct, which is reprehensible in itself. I would like for the court to know what that situation was. What happened is that we received a clue to talk to a maid named Sylvia, who said that Rosa sold her story for $5,000.
Oh, well.
And that's what we did. We interviewed a maid named Sylvia, who lived close to the Rockingham address.
They never, ever say it. They never do. I never see them come in and say it. But France has been a member, is just about to hit 1 year. France is just about to hit 1 year as a member of this channel. So they never come in and say it, but I'm going to thank them again on tomorrow's regular stream, not just the OJ stream, but I did want to thank them. Thank you so much. Sorry, Marcia. It was important.
Of the defendant, and she denied having spoken to Rosa. She denied having any close relationship with Rosa Lopez. She denied having any knowledge of the case at all. She said she did know Rosa, but having ridden the bus with her a couple times, and that's all she knew. And so there was nothing to generate, because all we did was follow up a clue that wound up being, I have no information. We had no idea, because of the defense misconduct, that Sylvia was somebody who had some material information, Rosa Lopez claimed. And so all we were doing was following up a tip that didn't pan out. Had we known that Rosa Lopez made this statement on July 29th, claiming to have visited, and now the defense wants to downplay her importance, and they want to downplay her importance in order to, this is going to be how they cover up, how they explain away, yet another way we're going to expose Rosa Lopez as a liar. This is, now we've got their cover story. The court's heard it. That this woman doesn't want to get involved and she's an illegal alien. Illegal aliens tell the truth too, Your Honor. And I'm sure that Sylvia will tell the truth if asked, whether or not she was with Rosa Lopez that night. But obviously she becomes a source of impeachment material.
All right, two questions then, Ms. Clark. Are we confident in our determination that the Sylvia mentioned in the report from July is the same Sylvia that the tip was followed up on?
We have no way of knowing that. Because the defense hid this report from us, we have no way of knowing it this time. We're going to attempt to find out.
Okay. Second question. Although from Mr. Douglas's comment, I take that to mean that apparently it's the same person.
It would seem they are saying so.
All right. Sure.
also would like to point out to the court that we have an inconsistency even among defense counsel.
Ms. Clark, I just had two questions.
I'm sorry.
Let me pose my questions
Sure.
to you. I just wanted to see what your level of confidence was in that Sylvia is the same Sylvia. You seem to have a fair degree of confidence that we're talking about the same person. Secondly, my second question, let's assume that I agree with you that this is a delay in discovery that is substantial and should not have occurred, especially in light of what transpired earlier, calling upon your first observation that this is deja vu all over again. What sanction, if any, do you seek at this point, since that's really the bottom line
Yes.
of our discussion, I assume?
Okay. Let me address the points seriatim. Number one, only hearing Mr. Douglas's statements now did I gain that confidence. Prior to coming down to court and hearing him make those statements, I didn't. I wasn't sure. I asked the investigator.
During the course of cross-examination of Ms. Lopez, assuming we go forward today, we can flesh out who she is
I'm assuming that.
and then confront her with any contrary views expressed by Sylvia, quote unquote.
Right. Of course, thanks to defense counsel's misconduct, we are going to be doing that in the blind. And as we all know, lawyers should not be asking questions on cross-examination for which they do not have answers. And what counsel has deliberately done is force us to do that very thing. So, number one thing, I want to point out to the court on how many occasions in the past we have asked for the notes, tapes, prior to other statements of this witness, specifically this witness. We have requested them. They were denied to us. This morning, Mr. Cochran came in and told the court that he first learned of this other statement today. And now Mr. Douglas tells us he knew about it all along. We have inconsistencies between counsel. And we have...
They are such liars. And they're putting witnesses on that are liars. They are lying constantly, constantly, constantly. And then the prosecution is getting hounded by the press and everything here. I don't understand it. The defenses are they're terrible.
We have to race the tabloids in order to find out where this Sylvia is, who she is, and what she'll have to say. I mean, really, we are put behind the eight ball in a very serious way. And Mr. Douglas's elaborate dance doesn't cloud the fact that we're put behind the eight ball with this. I think that here's what I think would be the fairest thing, is to preclude counsel from using this as a prior consistent statement, which is in any case, legally it doesn't amount to a prior consistent statement that would be admissible for corroboration, because it does not arise at a time prior to the genesis of the bias. But in any case, if they were to attempt to use it in any form, it should not be admissible as a prior consistent statement. Furthermore, yes. Furthermore, they should be precluded from ever calling Sylvia. And we should be permitted to cross-examine on this July 29th statement at our discretion. We would further ask the court to admonish the jury that we have a willful and intentional disobedience of a court order in the delaying tactic of the defense in turning over this report, which delaying tactic was engaged in for the purpose of gaining a tactical advantage in the case and taking the people by surprise, and in an effort to curtail their effective cross-examination of Rosa Lopez. And I'm reminded that perhaps this would be the time, Your Honor, to lift the discovery sanctions imposed upon us some 2 months ago.
I wonder, since you didn't see the trial, you were born in 2003. What do you know about the glove? What do you think when you hear the glove?
With domestic violence all over again, wouldn't we?
Revisit, yes. But at least that would allow us to present witnesses and try the case in the manner that we had, closer to the manner in which we had anticipated doing. It's now been 2 months. Counsel was afforded the opportunity to investigate those witnesses. Now they have had all of the time that the court deemed appropriate. I think the court said 6 weeks. It's been longer than that. And we should be permitted, I think, at this time, to be able to put those witnesses on.
So as I understand you correctly, then your position is that you want me to restrict or prevent the defense from using the July 29th statement as a prior consistent statement, should that come up. You want me to preclude the use of Sylvia as a defense witness.
That's correct.
You want me to give an instruction to the jury regarding another violation of the discovery rules, and you want me to lift the previous sanction regarding the witnesses that were belatedly disclosed by the prosecution, correct?
Right.
All right.
Which I'd like to underline one thing to the court. When we say belated in the People's case, there was a 2 to 3 week delay. We're not talking, the defense delay is more like an ice age compared to that. We're talking 8 months, Your Honor, 8 months that they sat on a statement that at least one of them knew they had. A statement that was prepared by the very same investigator who prepared the August 18th statement. I mean, this is so obviously willful. This is so obviously intentional, a disobedience of the court's order, that I am shocked. I am shocked. I have never seen a defense attorney behave this way. I have never seen this happen. I've heard of delays. I've heard of refusal to take statements. I've heard of a lot of things. But I've never seen this. And I've never seen it in such a blatant form in an effort to sandbag the prosecution, to blindside us.
In this trial.
They're obviously very desperate, to engage in such obvious tactics, but they should be unavailing.
Everybody knows. We all know. We were there.
After the repeated requests by the prosecution for notes, tapes, and other reports on witnesses, and particularly this one, and the denials of defense counsel that any such thing existed, only to have the 11th hour report come out,
Well, counsel,
I'd ask that...
Let me tell you what concerns me the most about that. After having said all that, and forgive me for interrupting you, but a more pertinent point is that after we had that last episode, I then directed defense counsel to go through and make an inventory.
Everybody has been interrupting her every time she talks for the whole preliminary trial and the whole trial. Nobody gets interrupted like she gets interrupted. Nobody. Every single person. It's a wonder the janitor doesn't walk by and interrupt her while she's talking. Everybody keeps interrupting her, and now Ito's like, "Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting you." No, you're not sorry. Oh, there goes my blood pressure again. This trial is it's killing me.
Of all the witnesses and statements, because I wanted to avoid specifically what we have here. That's what concerns me more than what you just mentioned.
Right. And because I was not charged with the responsibility of compiling the inventory, the pain of that effort caused me to forget that the court had made that order, and that makes it even worse. That's right. Because who knows what else they have? Who knows what else they're sitting on? So I would ask the court for this. I would like their investigators to come into court and divulge to us all of the reports and notes and statements that they have taken on the relevant defense witnesses that we will designate, so that we can get a complete and accurate idea of what else they've got that they have not turned over. Because I think we have not seen the end of this.
All right.
We need Rose's notes, by the way. We know that she's been extensively interviewed by counsel. I cannot believe for 1 minute that there was no note taken, no tape made of any statement that she gave, especially over this last weekend. So, I mean, there are considerable notes and statements that exist on this witness that we have not been shown. And the defense counsel, if they want to get up and deny it again, we're going to revisit the issue again. But I would hope that the court's sanctions would be much more draconian. And I would ask that before we proceed, we hear from these investigators. I want to see, I think the court should see what else they've got. And I don't know if we'll ever find out, but we can try.
Mr. Douglas?
A couple things come to mind, Your Honor. There are a few occasions in court where I felt as bad as back in January when I had to suffer the slings and arrows for things that occurred. Therefore, Your Honor, I would not willingly or intentionally thrust the defense into a position where I find myself again having to explain something such as this. When the court admonished defense counsel to seriously and cautiously review the discovery and to create a book and to set forth all of the documentation. I did that, and I complied with the court's direction in that regard. There was, Your Honor, in my records, a 2-page interview from William Pavlik to Robert Shapiro concerning Rosa Lopez. I then checked off that, consistent with a 2-page interview from William Pavlik to Robert Shapiro that had been turned over to the prosecution. It was only...
If only, like, evidence could be numbered in some freaking way so that people would know what piece of evidence they're talking about. Do you know they have over 1,000 pieces of evidence that they're giving to the court for this trial, and they're already numbered. We know this because we keep seeing them give evidence with the numbers on them. He knows. He knows that he's lying right now. He knows that there were 2. He knows he had them both. They are lying. They are lying so hard. Ito knows it. Every single person in the world knows that they are lying right now.
This morning, Your Honor, that I saw for the first time that the 2-page interview that we had given to the prosecution was not the same 2-page interview that I had been using in my notes. Your Honor, I stand before this court.
I just think it's easy. They don't get to use it. They just don't get to use it. That's how a courtroom works.
As an officer of the court, to tell you that I never had in my possession the August 18th statement until I went back at direction of Mr. Cochran and checked to see what document it was that had been given.
Mr. Douglas, let me direct your attention to one other thing that I'm more interested in. Let's assume that we both agree, however, that this is a late disclosure, because there is some difference, significant difference between these two statements. So you and I both have to agree that the disclosure is late in coming, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Putting aside the explanation as to how that happened, the prosecution has asked for 4 sanctions as a result of this. What's your response to their request for these 4 sanctions?
I do not think, Your Honor, that it justifies bringing in investigators and having investigators share intimate attorney-client work product with the prosecution. There are no notes that have not been turned over. There are no tape-recorded statements of Ms. Lopez. I'm not sure, Your Honor, how the prosecution speaks to a witness that they are going to call when there are attorneys present. We sit in a conference room and basically discuss questions that will be asked, answers that are going to be given, but we're not taking down notes such that it would be the kind of thing that they're talking about. So I'm not sure what they are talking about. There is no tape recording of Ms. Lopez by any of our investigators. We turned over, Your Honor, the July 29, 1994 statement.
Mr. Douglas, that's really another question that you're addressing. I want you to address the 4 specific sanctions that the prosecution has asked for in light of the delay in disclosure. The other issue as to whether or not we're going to talk to Mr. Pavlik or the other investigators to ask them to disgorge anything else that they might have as to any other witnesses, that's interesting. That's something we'll take up at a later time. I'm more interested in getting your response to these 4 requests.
Very well, Your Honor. Can you remind what the 4 were?
Number 1 was that you be precluded from using the July 29th statement as a prior consistent statement. Number 2, that you be precluded from using Sylvia, quote unquote, as a defense witness. Number 3, that the court give an instruction to the jury that there's been a willful failure to disclose the prior statement of Rosa Lopez to the jury. And fourthly, that the court lift its previous sanction on the prosecution for their delay in disclosure and allow them to now present the witnesses that were late in being disclosed.
I think, Your Honor, I will answer this question, and I think the court should understand some context so that you could weigh the appropriateness of any particular sanctions. What we are doing is creating a conditional examination record that the defendant will use in his case. Now we're learning will come at a minimum of 6 weeks from now, if not longer. If there is the court's position that some sort of a sanction would be appropriate because there may be some measure of prejudice with the people being unable to specifically question this Sylvia, and we have not interviewed Sylvia, Your Honor. We have not contacted her. I'd like to make that clear as well. I think that the appropriate sanction would be consistent with that which was imposed on the prosecution. That is, creating some time frame within which the defense would be barred from offering that videotape until there has been a showing that the people have had an adequate opportunity to investigate this Sylvia, to obtain a subsequent statement from her, and are now adequately prepared to rebut anything that may have been said about Sylvia in Ms. Lopez's statement. It is important to remember, Your Honor, that we are not intending to bring any circumstances of Sylvia's involvement in our case through the testimony of Ms. Lopez. Our entire testimony is going to be based on that which is included in the August 18, 1994 statement, which is why I say that statement is more complete for the purposes of her testimony than even the statement from July 1994. I do not think, Your Honor, that it would be proper to preclude Sylvia from being called as a defense witness, because I think that would be a premature ruling at this point. It may be that she will have nothing that we are going to offer in corroboration of Ms. Lopez. It may be that she will. I would urge the court to withhold that particular consideration of the sanction until we get to that point, and to require that we would be obligated to inform the court beforehand. This Sylvia is not on our witness list. We have no document from Sylvia. I cannot represent to the court that there is even a present intention to call Sylvia in any regard. I suspect, because she is undocumented, that she is not going to be very interested in involving herself in a case of this profile, and I suspect that we would not anticipate calling her as a witness, but I do not think it be prudent at this point to commit to that particular sanction. As to the final sanction, that is, that they should now be relieved of their obligations, the court has always made it clear that we can't confuse apples and oranges. The court imposed a sanction that the court thought was well-fashioned and well-based. Given that record, I would urge the court to impose a sanction that is similar given this particular record, and that is the advantage that we have now of having a conditional examination. She is not going to be testifying in front of the jury. It is not, for example, a situation where prior to her going away for the day, after her direct has already been placed in front of the jury, we now say, oh, by the way, we have this statement. When we learned about this statement, when we learned that they were different, we then first brought it to the court's attention to see, for the court preliminarily to rule whether or not there was an obligation to release the statement. Certainly, Your Honor, I understand and appreciate the scorn that would befall me for explaining the circumstances of this. But this was not intentional, Your Honor. It was not willful, and certainly this court has had some ability to gauge the nature of the defense effort, understanding that it is very much a monumental effort. But this was a matter that we brought to the court's attention before the witness was called to testify. And I do think, Your Honor, when the court is trying to balance and to interpret and to read between the lines, there should be some understanding place that the defendant did in fact come forward with this evidence, this information, and offered an explanation to explain it, though certainly not just a justification that the name was in fact missed. I do think, Your Honor, as well, that it would be totally improper, given the current state and where we are, for the court to issue an instruction to the jury that there has been some further willful misconduct. The reason why the court felt it appropriate earlier to issue a curative instruction was because there had been statements made concerning Mary Ann Gertjes to the jury, and the court realized that we could not unring the bell. There has not been anything said about any Sylvia, any mention to the jury at all of any connection that she may have. Her connection at best is only tangential and is not one that we intend to elicit on direct examination. So I do not think that there is a showing that we have in any way taken advantage of this slip as the showing that was made in the earlier example, which then in the court's mind justified the imposition of that sanction.
Thank you, Counsel. All right,
Now, do you have points taken out to the court?
one thing.
Okay. I find it very, very impossible to believe that the defense did not follow up to interview a potentially corroborating witness for someone who is their key alibi witness. And Mr. Douglas's efforts to convince this court to minimize the importance of Sylvia to the defense should not be accepted at face value. It's clear that she is somebody that they would like to rely on and probably did interview and rejected because she dumped Rosa Lopez out as being a liar. And that I'd like to point out to the court that the defense came forward this morning only after it realized in fear that once Ms. Lopez was cross-examined about how many times she spoke to their investigators and when, that their subterfuge was going to be exposed. Had we done the conditional exam on Friday night, Your Honor.
Bam, bam. She is absolutely spot on. They only found this once they saw Rosa is just a terrible liar and lies about everything. Now they found this extra person. She's right.
She would have been here and gone, and we would never have realized that there was another statement given by her. So the prejudice could have been severe.
Tired.
Pardon?
Never mind. All right, then I take it, Ms. Clark, that since you were asking for these various sanctions, Mr. Douglas is correct that I need not impose any of these sanctions except for the one lifting your order of proof unless and until the defense chooses to present Rosa Lopez's 1335 statement, correct? I mean, I think you agree with that timing-wise. All right, then I would propose that we go forward then with the 1335 with Rosa Lopez at this time.
If there's only one thing that I would request at this time, Your Honor, and that is that the investigators be brought into court and required to divulge the information with respect to any other notes, reports, or interviews taken.
All right, we can take that up later, but I would like to get the 1335 in the can, so to speak, if we can do that.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
I would like to get the 1330. We will take that issue up, whether or not there is any, because what has transpired obviously causes me some curiosity and concern as to whether or not there's anything more out there that we ought to know about. I agree with you there. But I would prefer to use our time today getting the 1335 in the can.
Now you're curious? Now you're concerned?
We're talking about our right to cross-examine this witness. If there are other reports and notes of her made by the investigators, we obviously need to know about that before we cross-examine her.
Well, the representation that's been made by Mr. Douglas is that there are no such other reports.
Which has been made
And
before,
notes.
specifically with regard to this witness. And this morning. That was, Mr. Darden came into court and requested any other notes or reports, and we were given a very assured, confident statement that there was nothing else, only to be confronted at the 11th hour with this other statement that came floating out. So I don't think we can accept
All right, so
counsel's.
you'd be satisfied with Mr. Pavlik coming in and telling us on the record that that's all there is?
Under oath, yeah. The other sanction that would be applicable to the conditional examination, Your Honor, is the use or mention of any of the statements contained in the July 29th statement. Any reference to those as a prior consistent statement.
I would say this, though, Ms. Clark, that we can go forward with a rather broad range during the 1335 because that is a statement that will not be offered unless until I find there's good cause, and it's still subject to editing for objections and other sanctions. I think because I have the impression that you would like to cross-examine her on the July 29th.
That may be true. Especially in light of the fact she doesn't see a Bronco.
If you cross-examine on it, then they are entitled to go back and reestablish the complete statement of what's there. Mm-hmm. Now, whether or not that comes in before the jury is another question. Mm-hmm. But if it's in the can, at least I know it's there.
Okay. Okay, then what about the...
All right, but I will ask Mr. Pavlik to come in and to respond to the question whether or not there are any other items with regards.
Is that the only... Or Mr. McNally as well, Your Honor? We have two.
I don't believe Mr. McNally is employed by the defense any longer.
Judge Dad?
He's referred to in the August 18th statement. as one of the
I
interviewers.
don't believe he's here, and I don't believe he's in the employ of the defense any longer.
No, McKenna. That's McKenna. That's McKenna. Is there any way, I'm sorry, but is there any way that we can get some kind of statement from the defense concerning Mr. McNally's notes and who they were turned over to? Perhaps Mr. Pavlik's in possession of them. Obviously, he was engaged by the defense back at the...
Why don't we just, let's ask Mr. Douglas, is Mr. Pavlik available?
He can be available, Your Honor, yes.
Well, I'm going to propose a modification to our court schedule today to go to 4:30 since we're getting such a late start. Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, except that we want to hear from Mr. Pavlik before we begin cross.
All right, well, let's get the direct, and Mr. Shapiro, would you make a phone call to Mr. Pavlik, have him come to court forthwith, and we'll commence with the direct examination, and I'll take a recess between the direct and the cross-examination so that we can address the Pavlik issue. But I would like to get started with this.
So the direct examination that they're about to do with Rosa, there's no jury for that, right? They're going to record it on video, and then they're going to use that in the trial?
We have not interviewed this person known as Sylvia. We do not know her.
I got that the first time.
Well, Your Honor, the suggestion that I'm lying when I say that offends me, so I want to make sure that
Mr.
it's
Douglas, let's be very clear. I have not imposed any sanctions yet.
Yes, Your
I
Honor.
haven't made any findings yet, so let's not get too excited at this point. But I am concerned for the reason I mentioned.
I respect it, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Schuman, Mr. Firth, are we ready? All right, Mr. Cochran, I'm sorry. 2 minutes? I'll stay here so we don't all have to go out and come back in. No. We'll take one break. Let me know, though. And, Madam Interpreter, let me know if you need a break. All right. And Mrs. Robertson, let's get the interpreter a glass of water, please. All right. How about a quarter after 3, and we'll change reporters.
Rosa Maria Lopez.
All right, good afternoon, Ms. Lopez.
Buenas tardes.
Thank you
Good
for
afternoon,
staying.
Your
Mr. Cochran.
Thank you very kindly. Good afternoon, Ms. Lopez. Ms. Lopez, where were you born?
In El Salvador.
And what is your native language?
¿Cuál es su lengua madre? Español. Spanish.
And do you understand and speak some English?
Just a little.
And in the course of your examination here today, would you prefer to speak with us in Spanish or English?
Y en el transcurso de este interrogatorio el día de hoy prefiere hablar inglés o español. Español. Spanish.
Now, you described for us that you were born in El Salvador. How far did you go in school in El Salvador?
Usted nos dijo que
That's very relevant, true.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
usted dijo que nació en El Salvador. ¿Hasta qué grado llegó en la escuela?
Cuarto año.
4th grade.
And did you attend all of those 4 years?
¿Usted asistió a la escuela todos esos años?
No.
No.
And why was it that you quit school after only 4 years, a part of 4 years?
Overruled.
¿Y por qué es que usted dejó la escuela después de los 4 años?
Porque mis padres eran muy pobres y no tenían para comprarme cuadernos ni lápiz.
Because my parents were very poor and they didn't have any to buy me books, notebooks and pencils.
How old were you when you quit school?
¿Qué edad, cuántos años tenía usted cuando
Overruled.
dejó de ir al colegio, a la escuela?
10 años, digo yo.
I would say 10 years old.
And did you start working at 10 years of age?
Objection, Ms. Lee.
Sustain.
At what age did you start to work?
Objection, Ms. Baxter.
Overruled.
¿Y cuántos años tenía usted cuando empezó a trabajar?
De los 9 años en adelante trabajé.
I worked after from 9 years old on.
And what kind of work were you doing at 9 years old?
¿Y qué clase de trabajo?
Overruled.
¿Y qué clase de trabajo hacía usted?
En el campo con mis padres,
On the field.
sembrar la milpa, los frijoles, el maíz.
On the field with my parents, I would plant corn, beans, and rice.
And this was in what country?
¿Y eso fue en qué país?
En El Salvador,
In El Salvador.
How many children, how many brothers and sisters did you have, Ms. Lopez?
Objection is relevant.
Overruled.
¿Cuántos hermanos y hermanas pues tiene usted?
6 hembras y 4 varones.
6 girls and 4 boys.
Just so council's aware, because this is a 1335, and not being able to predict the scope entirely at this point, I'm going to be rather broad as far as relevancy is concerned, but understanding that when it comes to the offer of the conditional examination before the trier of fact, it'll be edited if I find certain areas to be irrelevant. But since we're talking about something that is being preserved, in essence, I'm going to be rather broad in relevance, just to let you know.
My only concern at this point is that if I fail to object at this time, the court consider that a waiver at a later
No.
point.
No.
No?
No. I'll take your standing objection to background as, I'll take it as a standing objection to background questions. Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you. Of the 10 children, how did you fall? Were you the youngest, the oldest, or what?
De los 10 hijos, ¿verdad? Los 10 hermanos. ¿En qué lugar queda usted? ¿Era la mayor, la menor o cómo?
En medio,
In the middle.
Now, when you attended school, how far was school from your home?
Cuando usted asistía a la escuela, ¿a qué distancia de su casa quedaba la
This is
escuela?
pretty far afoot.
This is the last question that's here.
Okay.
a 3 millas.
Can I give the answer?
Yes,
I
please.
did. 3 miles away.
And how would you get to school each day?
¿Y cómo llegaba usted hasta la escuela todos los días?
Caminando.
Walking.
Now, once you started to work, as you've indicated, I guess at 9 or 10 years of age, how many years have you worked in your life?
Desde que usted empezó a trabajar, como dice que ha trabajado desde los 9 años,
All
¿cuántos
of them.
años ha trabajado usted en su vida?
50 años.
About 50 years.
So from the time you quit school, have you continued to work up until today's date,
O sea, del
until
día,
1995?
Overruled.
o sea, desde que el día usted dejó de estudiar, ha continuado usted trabajando hasta este año de 1995.
I barely know enough English to get through a 3rd grade lesson.
Sí.
Yes.
Now, at some point, you left El Salvador and you came to the United States. Is that correct?
Llegó el momento en que usted salió del Salvador y se vino a los Estados Unidos, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Yes.
And when was that?
¿Y cuándo fue eso?
En 1969.
In 1969.
And have you continued to live in the United States since 1969?
¿Y usted ha vivido continuamente en los Estados Unidos desde 1969?
Sí.
Yes.
And have you returned to El Salvador during that period of time, during the last 25 or 26 years?
¿Y usted ha vuelto a El Salvador durante ese periodo de tiempo, es decir, en los últimos 25, 26 años?
Sí.
Yes.
And do you own any land or property in El Salvador?
¿Y usted es dueña de alguna de terreno o propiedades en El Salvador?
De la casa que me dejó mi hijo.
The house my son left me.
Now, with regard to your son, how many children have you had in your life, Ms. Lopez?
Hablando de su hijo, ¿cuántos hijos ha tenido usted?
7.
7.
And
Relevance.
did all 7 of those children survive childbirth?
¿Y sus 7 hijos sobrevivieron el nacimiento?
I'm gonna
That's
link
this
it up
whole
with the amount
trial.
of children who live
Please.
there.
I didn't hear the ruling of the
For all of you who've been watching from the beginning, how many minutes of testimony have we had on the actual crime of murder? I'm going to go with, you know what? I'll give it 2 hours. I'm I'm going to say we've had a total of 2 hours of testimony that had anything at all to do with OJ Simpson and Nicole Brown and Ronald. And we've been at it for, what is this, 82 days, 83 days? We're not halfway done.
No, she can answer the question.
Puede contestar la pregunta. ¿Cuántos de esos 7 hijos sobrevivieron al nacimiento?
Solamente 4 viven.
Only 4 living.
All right, and of the 4 children who, I guess, survived childbirth, how many of those children are alive now?
Y de los 4 hijos que sobrevivieron el nacimiento, que nacieron, ¿cuántos de ellos están vivos todavía?
Solamente 2.
Only 2.
And what happened to the other 2 children?
¿Y qué pasó? ¿Qué le pasó a los otros 2 hijos?
Me lo mataron. La niña que tenía 15 años se desapareció y no le he vuelto a saber de ella para nada cuando empezó la guerra.
They killed them. The 15-year-old girl that I don't know what happened to her since the war.
Y mi hijo era piloto aviador y me lo mataron los guerrilleros, lo derribaron del aeropuerto.
And my son was a pilot. He was a flyer, and that the guerrillas shot him down.
Is he a helicopter pilot of some kind?
Él era piloto de helicóptero de alguna clase.
Sí, era teniente.
Yes, he was a lieutenant.
And there is a war that's been going on for some time in your country?
I'm not saying I don't believe her, because I do, but she's still a liar.
¿Y hay una guerra que ha estado pues ocurriendo por algún tiempo ya en su país?
Sí.
Yes.
So when she
With
says
regard
something
to,
like that,
the
I don't
4
know what to
children-
believe. Like, because everything else she's lied about, every single thing. I believe her, but man.
When you came to the United States in 1969, did you bring all 4 of the children here?
Hablando de sus hijos, cuando vino a los Estados Unidos en 1969, ¿trajo sus 4 hijos para acá?
No solo me traje 2.
No, I only brought 2.
And are those 2 children still here now, living in the United States now?
Y esos 2 hijos todavía viven aquí, están viviendo en los Estados Unidos ahora actualmente?
Sí.
Yes.
And the other 2 who lost their lives remained in El Salvador?
¿Y los otros 2 que perdieron sus vidas permanecieron en El Salvador?
Sí.
Yes.
Now, with regard to your son who was killed as a helicopter pilot, do you have some plans with regard to him, his burial?
Overruled.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Did you
Sorry.
have...
Yes, as regards your son, the helicopter pilot who was killed in the war, do you have some plans regarding his burial?
Hablando de su hijo, el que era piloto de helicóptero, que fue muerto en El Salvador, ¿tiene usted algo planeado o tiene planes usted algo concerniente a su entierro?
Ponerle su tumba y hacerla como él me la pidió, de ponerle su tumba militar y un helicóptero y su nombre y todo, porque no está así, que no tuve el tiempo de ponérsela.
Well, to do as he asked me to do, is to buy him
It's called balance.
a tomb and put his name on it and buy him a helicopter and
Stop
like as he
typing.
asked me because
Balance.
I never had time to do so.
Was that word tomb? Did you say tomb?
Dijo tumba.
Tumba, sí.
And the
Tomb,
helicopter
yes.
that you would purchase, is this a full-size helicopter? Describe the helicopter you
Y
would
el
purchase.
helicóptero que le va a comprar o que le va a poner, describa este helicóptero. ¿Es un helicóptero de tamaño normal o descríbalo?
Es la Fuerza Aérea, los mismos compañeros de mi hijo les hacen su helicóptero de metal pequeño para decorar su bóveda.
His co-workers at the Air Force have make a small metal helicopter for him to decorate his tomb.
All right. Once you came to the United States, after a period of time, did you become a resident alien? Did you become documented at some point?
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Después de que usted vino, después de un tiempo de haber venido a los Estados Unidos, usted se hizo residente legal, extranjera residente legal. Yes.
And when was that, if you recall?
¿Cuándo fue eso, si usted recuerda?
No me recuerdo específicamente, no me recuerdo, pero parece que fue el 88, no estoy muy seguro, 88, 89.
I don't remember specifically, but I think it was 88 or 89.
Now, you described for us earlier that when you first started working at 9 or 10 years of age, you worked in the fields. And when you lived in El Salvador, is that always the kind of work you did? Did you work in the fields or did you do some other kind of work?
Usted dijo que ha estado trabajando desde que tenía 9 y 10 años de edad y siempre fue en los campos, ¿verdad? ¿Ese fue el trabajo que usted hacía siempre cuando estaba en El Salvador, el trabajo de campo, o hacía otra cosa?
No, trabajé de housekeeper.
No, I work as a housekeeper.
And for how many years in El Salvador did you work as a housekeeper?
¿Y por cuántos años en El Salvador es que usted trabajó de la casa, pues, del hogar, housekeeper?
Por mucho tiempo, no me recuerdo.
It was for a long time, I don't remember.
All right, now once you came to the United States and after 1969, what kind of work did you do at that time, ma'am?
Después de que usted llegó a los Estados Unidos en 1969, ¿qué clase de trabajo hizo usted en esa época?
Aquí.
Here?
Yes, in the United States.
Sí,
yes.
aquí en los Estados Unidos.
Housekeeper.
Housekeeper.
I got that one. Yes, I did.
I'd like now to direct your attention to approximately 1992 or thereabouts. Were you working as a housekeeper in 1992?
Quiero hacerle recordar el año de 1992, más o menos. ¿Usted estaba trabajando de housekeeper en 1992?
Sí.
Yes.
And at some point, did you go to work for a family by the name of the Salingers?
Y en algún momento usted empezó a trabajar por una familia que de apellido los Salinger.
Sí.
Yes.
Do you recall when that was approximately?
¿Usted recuerda cuándo fue eso aproximadamente?
Creo que el 92 empecé con ellos.
I think I started with them in 92.
All right, and how long did you work for the Salingers, if you recall?
¿Y por cuánto tiempo trabajó usted con los Salinger, si recuerda?
El 6 de enero cumplí 3 años y entré a 4.
January 6th, I completed 3 years and I started into the 4th.
All right, and do you still work for the Salingers now?
¿Usted todavía está trabajando para los Salingers actualmente?
No.
No.
And at some point, did you leave their employ?
¿Y en algún momento usted dejó su trabajo con ellos?
Sí.
Yes.
And when was that?
¿Y cuándo fue eso?
Febrero 10 del 95.
February 10th, 95.
Prior to leaving the Salingers, had you asked for some time off work?
Antes de salirse de donde los Salinger, usted había pedido un tiempo de...
To put that in perspective, today is February 27th, 1995. So 17 days ago, she lost her job.
descanso.
Le dije que me debían una semana de vacación ellos.
Well, they owe me a week's vacation.
Y yo le pregunté a la señora si me daba 2.
And I asked the lady if she could give me 2.
Y ella dijo,
And she said,
no.
no.
And what happened after that, if anything?
¿Y qué pasó después de eso, si es que ocurrió algo?
Ella se sienta en el comedor
Godiva
She sits down in the dining room.
y me dice, nosotros hemos hablado
And she said, we have talked.
que
That
me quiso dar.
That's not how the questions work in this trial, Donald. No. First she has to say she's not working for them, and then she has to say she left their employ, and then she has to say that she's no longer employed, and then she has to say, well, she was employed, but now she's not, and then she has to say on the 10th, and then she has to say, well, on February 10th, 1995, I left their employ. I was fired. I don't work there anymore. So we still have all of those to go through.
A comprender ella que con tanta presión que yo tenía.
She was letting me, trying to let me know that with all the pressure that I had, or that was.
All right, this is non-responsive to the question. Mr. Cochran,
Let
you
me
want to ask questions?
I'll ask another question.
I'm sorry? It's non-responsive, yes.
You sat down and had a conversation on or about, was it February 6th, with Ms. Salinger? That's foundational to the next question.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
All right. You had a conversation with Ms. Salinger in her living room, was it?
Usted tuvo una conversación con la señora Salinger en su sala.
En el comedor del
in the dining room.
All right, and what happened during that conversation?
¿Qué ocurrió durante esa conversación?
Ella dijo, hemos platicado y he pensado que si te vas, que te vayas por un tiempo hasta que toda esta presión pase.
We have talked and we have decided that if you are going to take off, you can go for some time until all of this pressure is over with.
And what pressure were you referring to at that point?
¿Y a qué presión se estaba refiriendo usted en ese
A todos los reporteros que llegaban a la casa.
To all the reporters that would come over to the house.
And the house we're talking about where the Salingers live is located where?
Y la casa de que usted está
Hey,
hablando
Bryden.
que de los Salinger, ¿a dónde queda localizada?
El 348 North Rockingham.
Were the reporters in and around 348 Rockingham of some concern to you
Los reporteros que
in
estaban
January and February of 1995?
en el 348 Rockingham le preocupaban a usted en enero y en febrero del 95.
Sí.
Yes.
And if you know, was of some concern to the Salingers, the reporters who were around?
Y que usted sepa también.
Sustained.
Did you have a conversation with the Salingers where they ever expressed some concern about the reporters in and around 348 Rockingham?
Sustained.
Are you aware of how the Salingers felt about any reporters who may have been around the location? Answer that. So, are you aware?
Usted, I'm sorry, Your Honor, can I have the question read back?
Yes. Is there any dispute about this?
Yes.
That the Salingers were concerned about the press coverage?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Reporter, would you read the question back, please?
All right, Donald. What do you think Fozzie might have sent me that would just make me smile the entire time from beginning to end? If it was a video. Let's pretend Fozzie sent me a video and I smiled from beginning to end. You tell me what was in that video. It should be really, really easy.
¿Usted sabe cómo se sentían los Salinger acerca de los reporteros que podrían haber estado que estaban alrededor del lugar?
Se sentían mal.
They felt bad.
Did you ever, without you answer this yes or no, did you ever have a conversation with the Salingers with regard to the reporters who came around
so
348
close.
Rockingham in the months of January and February of 1995?
But
¿Puede
also,
contestar esto con un sí o con un no? ¿Alguna vez usted tuvo alguna conversación con los Salinger acerca de...
has he gotten something?
acerca
Yeah.
de los reporteros que llegaban ahí al 348 Rockingham en enero y febrero de
Playing with this cat.
No.
It's so
No.
good.
Now, do you know the gentleman, or you know who this gentleman is to my left, sitting next to Mr. Shapiro here? I'll go ahead and put my hand on his shoulder.
¿Usted sabe quién es este caballero que está sentado aquí a mi izquierda, cuyo puesto mi mano encima de su hombro?
Mr. OJ Simpson.
Mr.
right.
OJ Simpson.
And where do the Salingers live in relation to Mr. O.J. Simpson's home, if you know?
¿Y a dónde viven los Salingers en relación con la casa del señor O.J. Simpson, si usted sabe?
Son vecinos.
They are neighbors.
And you described for us that you'd worked for the Salingers a little more than 3 years. During that period of time, did you ever meet or talk with Mr. O.J. Simpson?
Usted ha dicho que trabajó para los Salinger más o menos por un periodo de 3 años. Durante ese periodo de tiempo, ¿alguna vez usted platicó con el señor O.J. Simpson?
Una vez.
One time.
And when was that?
¿Y cuándo fue esa vez? ¿Cuándo fue?
Mrs. Salinger me pidió el favor que le hablara a Mr. Simpson porque sus nietos querían que le firmara unas pelotas de jugar fútbol.
Mrs. Salinger asked me to talk to Mr. Simpson because she wanted her grandchildren to sign they want him to sign some footballs.
For the grandchildren?
Para
the
los
Salingers'
nietos,
grandchildren?
los nietos de los Salinger?
Ya para Josh Billen.
Yes, for Josh Billing.
If you want to learn more about footballs, watch my last stream.
That's the names of the two grandchildren?
Nombre?
Josh Billen. Joshua Billen.
Joshua Billing.
All right, was there one grandchild or
En
more than one?
Graviel Viles.
¿Había más de un nieto?
Sí.
Yes.
What was the name of the other
¿Y cómo se
grandchild?
llamaba el otro?
Grevio.
Or anybody with you.
Graviel Vilen.
Gab
Gravi.
Gravi.
I don't know.
Billing. I don't know.
All right, do we know how to spell that for the record?
¿Usted sabe cómo se
She
escribe?
can't even
¿no?
say it.
Yo lo
How's she
escribo
supposed to
Graviel
spell
en
it?
español.
I write it as in Spanish, Gabriel.
That's
Gabriel?
perhaps
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes,
so. All right.
Gabriel.
Now, with regard to these two grandchildren, Josh and Gabrielle, did you in some way try to get the footballs autographed by Mr. Simpson?
Hablando de los nietos, ¿verdad? De Josh y Gabriel, ¿en algún momento usted trató de que le pusieran el autógrafo, el señor Simpson, en las pelotas?
Los niños fueron con él, yo los llevé al gate y ellos entraron con Mr. Simpson.
The children went to him. I just took him up to the gate, and then they went inside with Mr. Simpson.
Did he autograph the footballs for them?
I'm sorry?
Did he autograph the footballs for them?
Él le puso los autógrafos en las pelotas ahí.
Sí, estaban muy contentos los niños, sí.
Yes, and the children were very happy, yes.
Right, other than this one time when Mr. Simpson autographed some footballs for the two grandchildren for the Salingers, did you ever talk to him or know him or become his friend?
Además de esta vez, ¿verdad? Que los niños le pusieron el autógrafo ahí. ¿Alguna vez usted habló con él o le platicó a él o se hizo amiga de él?
Nunca.
Never.
You knew he lived next door, however. Is that correct?
Sin embargo, usted sabía que él vivía en la vecindad.
Sí.
Yes.
Now, you have two children that you described for us who live in Los Angeles, do they? Is that correct?
Usted tiene dos hijos que usted nos contó que ellos viven en Los Ángeles.
Speaking of alcohol, Donald. So I picked a place. Donald's coming to see me next week. I picked a place to go, and they have their menus online. That I've hardly looked at all. I've been checking out just their alcoholic beverages to pre-plan what drink I want to get when I get there. I've looked a whole bunch of times.
¿Verdad?
Sí.
Yes.
And do you also have any grandchildren?
¿Usted también tiene algunos nietos?
Dos niñas.
Two girls.
When you worked here in the United States, would you ever send any money any other place? Becomes a link it up here.
Oral.
Yes.
Cuando usted ha trabajado aquí en los Estados Unidos, ¿ha mandado dinero a alguna otra parte?
He mandado a El Salvador cuando tenía mis otros niños allá.
I have sent it to El Salvador when I still had my other children there.
Did you ever assist any of your other relatives to come from El Salvador to the United States?
¿Alguna otra vez usted ha ayudado a alguno de cualquier otro de sus parientes a ayudarlos a venir para acá? No conteste todavía.
Oral.
Puede contestar.
Mi hermana, traje a mi hermana.
My sister, I brought my sister over.
All right. Now, I'd like to direct your attention, Ms. Lopez, to the date of June 12th, 1994. Do you remember that particular date?
Quiero ahora hacerle recordar, señora López, el día 12 de junio de 1994. ¿Usted recuerda ese día?
Sí.
Yes.
Do you remember what day of the week that was?
¿Recuerda qué día de la semana era?
Domingo.
Sunday.
And on Sunday, June 12th, 1994, were you working for the Salingers at that point?
Y el 12 de junio de 1994, ¿usted todavía estaba trabajando para los Salinger?
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
And if you recall, were the Salingers at home or in the United States at that time?
Y si usted recuerda que los Salinger estaban en la casa o en los Estados Unidos.
I have to make sure they have espresso, but this is it. But I'm not 100% sure they have espresso right now. I have to check.
Esa noche.
Andaban por Europa.
They were in Europe.
And did you work on that particular Sunday, June 12th?
Y usted trabajó.
I don't know who in the world brought up non-alcoholic beer in this chat, but have you not met me or Fozzie yet? Have you not ever spoken to us? We would never say something that mean to you guys. Never, ever. ever. Gun to my head, I wouldn't say something that mean to you guys. Fozzie, why are they saying this? Fozzie, why? I don't understand. Don't say that. Non-alcoholic beer. But I used to serve O'Doul's back in, oh God, what year was that? Oh, I think I was 92. It was right around this time when OJ was on. I was a cocktail server at a comedy club, and people would come in and ask for O'Doul's, and they drank them. They sat there and enjoyed the comedy show, or the strippers. We had male strippers too. And they drank non-alcoholic beer. You don't have to not like beer. That's fine. There's lots of things I don't like. But you should never take a beer and take the alcohol out of it. That hurts my feelings.
En ese domingo en particular, el 12 de junio.
Sí.
Yes.
And was anyone else at home with you on that particular date, if you recall?
¿Y había alguien más en la casa con usted en ese día en particular, si usted recuerda?
Solo ellos me dejan cuidándome a mí solita.
Never mind, Bryden. You can say whatever you want.
They just leave me there taking care of things by myself.
All right, and what were your duties on that particular Sunday? What kind of things were you doing at the Salinger home on Sunday, June 12th?
¿Y cuáles eran sus obligaciones en particular? ¿Qué clase de cosas estaba usted haciendo ese el día 12 de junio de 1990?
Como es domingo y es mi día off y ella no me paga mucho dinero por ese día, nomás $25 me da por el día
Well,
off.
because it is a Sunday and it is my day off, and she doesn't pay me a whole lot for my day off. She only gives me $25.
Hago muy pocas cosas, mantengo ordenada la cocina y cuidarle la perra, porque ella para eso me deja, para que le cuide una perra.
I do very little. I clean the kitchen and I take care of the dog, female connotation. And that's what I do, take care of the dog.
All right, is that what you did on June 12th, 1994?
Bueno, eso es lo que usted dijo el día 12 de junio de 1994.
Sí.
Yes.
And what kind of dog is this?
¿Qué clase de perro es este?
Golden Retriever, something that, I don't know.
Golden Retriever, something like that, I don't know.
All right. Now, do you recall whether or not in the evening hours of June 12, 1994, after about 5 o'clock, did you ever have occasion to do anything with the dog that afternoon?
Objection, that's leading, Your Honor.
Rephrase the question. Rephrase the question.
Certainly, Your Honor. Did you have occasion to ever take the dog out of the house after about 5 o'clock on June 12, 1994?
Same objection.
Sustained.
With regard to this golden Labrador Retriever, did you do anything with that dog on that particular day?
Hablando de este perro dorado, Labrador Retriever, ¿hizo usted algo con ese perro en ese día en particular?
Se le da de comer a las 5 de la tarde y se saca para afuera, señor.
She gets fed at 5 in the afternoon, and then she's taken outside, sir.
All right.
I do not
did
get
you feed her
paid
at 5
for
o'clock
doing
on
that.
this particular day, Sunday, June 12th?
¿Usted le dio de comer este día en particular el 12 de junio de 1994?
Sí.
Yes.
Espresso is
And
not
after you
on
fed
their
her at
menu.
5, what time, if you recall,
Says
did you
there they
take her
have
out after 5 o'clock on that particular day?
I'm going
Y
with
después
they
de que
have
usted le
it.
dio de comer a las 5, ¿usted recuerda que hora la sacó para afuera a caminar en ese día en particular?
A las 7.
At 7.
All right, and with regard to the Salinger's home, can you tell the court, jury, where you took the dog? Which part of the Salinger's property did you take the dog at that time?
Objection, that assumes the fact not and that was took the dog out. It's an abortion bill.
I'm asking which part of the property?
I'll allow the
Took it
question.
out.
Critical, Your Honor.
I understand. She can answer the question.
You may answer.
Y I have to translate first. Y hablando tocante a la propiedad o
Donald
la
gave me
residencia de
orders
Salinger,
on
¿qué
what
parte
restaurant to
de la
pick, and I
casa
picked
es que
it.
usted sacó a la perra a andar?
La saqué al lado de atrás, de la yarda de atrás.
I'll be happy with McDonald's.
To the backyard.
All right, Your Honor, I
Freaking
would
dollar
like-
menu. Yes, sir. I'll call it Lay McDonald's if it makes it better for you, Donald.
Mr. Douglas, you want to give us a hand here?
Oh, Kimby. Oh, Kimby. Hi, Kimby. Bye, Kimby. Chicken fried steak. Well, guys, it's time to get ready for courts. Thank you so much for coming out today. I really appreciate it. I got to get my blood pressure down now from OJ. I will never be 5'11". Never. I will never be 5'5". Nothing is wrong with chicken fried steak. It's delicious. Absolutely delicious. John, no OJs on Wednesdays and Saturdays, but you can't ask me what tomorrow is because I have no idea. Whatever is Wednesdays and Saturdays, you should write it down. John, go get a piece of paper and a pencil. Don't get a pen, get a pencil. That way you can erase it if you make a mistake. Write this down. I'm off Saturdays and Wednesdays. Kimby, you want to see something really cool? Kimby, are you still here? Do you want to see something extra cool? I know, you can't see it. I know. No, Donald, don't even try Women Are Expensive. I want McDonald's. You want a restaurant like this. I did what you said. Kimby, ready? All right, you can't see it, Kimby, but it says, you want to know what's on my shirt? It says that. That's on my shirt. That's what my shirt says. Even the artwork is there. But it's so thin that it makes me feel like I have like a string or something on my shirt. So I keep trying to get the strings off my shirt. Oh, man. It's Bill. It's Bill. All right, guys. I shall see you all very, very soon. I don't know, 2 hours. Maybe if I'm awake. Be good, okay? I'll talk to y'all again soon. Bye. Oh, no, Mr. Bill.